for lectures.
Oh, Dr. Prakash is here.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him. Dr. Sachin is here, and we have our regular people. Dr. Vasavada, can you hear us now? Not yet. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming and joining us today. This is our health station from ICSSS, our Indian Community Senior Citizen Services in Nashville, in conjunction with the Sri Ganesha Temple. We have been arranging these Zoom presentations on healthcare every month, and this month it has been our privilege to invite Dr. Tarak Vasavada to our program. A lot of people might know him from Huntsville area, but not in Nashville area. Therefore, I will go ahead and read a little bit of his accomplishments. He's a medical director of Huntsville Hospital Behavioral Health Services and a clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of Alabama School of Medicine for 25 years. He's been teaching for 25 years there. He's the president-elect of the Indo-American Psychiatric Association, which we have a Nashville chapter, and we want to invite him to inspire us here. He's a board member of National Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. He has been showing a lot of interest in public education, and he has a newsletter, Happy Minds, that he has been running for the benefit of public. Live Well Foundation is from Madison County Medical Society, and he's a medical director that's providing confidential services for physician well-being. For he's a doctor of doctors, or he's a counselor for counselors, and we have such a privilege of inviting him to the Nashville audience to give us some thoughts on science of happiness. On to you, Dr. Vasavada, and
Okay.
have some of our colleagues who have joined us, and maybe more of them will join.
Okay. I think I'm on. The screen is on. So nowadays in hospital, we always start with some safety story. And I start with a gratitude story when I talk like this. My gratitude to Dr. Rudra and Dr. Bilyar and Dr. Matthew is that they got me into Indo-American Psychiatric Association, which actually I'm going to be president for these 2 years now. So again, some people take interest in your life, invite you lovingly, and you show up. And it was 10 years back, and this is where I am now. So it's great. So I don't have anything to declare, any kind of financial relationship. I do have a website, but I don't intend to make any money. So far, nobody has paid me anything for my website. It's all coming out of my pocket. So we'll talk about a little bit, this is scientific based, and so it's not based on any kind of religion or faith or any particular group based. This is all science here. So what are the positive psychology and psychiatry movements nowadays? What are the advantages of being happy, if there is any? And where does our happiness come from? Is it based on our genetics, circumstances, or something we can do to become happy? And I'll provide you a few of the things that I've done, some kind of readings, and come up with some conclusions of happiness equation and my W's to road to happiness. So what are the positive psychiatry and psychology? So Dilip Jeste was the past president of American Psychiatric Association, has written a lot on that, especially wisdom also now. And maybe you should invite him too, Dr. Bilyar. Positive psychiatry is the science and practice of psychiatry that seeks to understand and promote the well-being through the assessment and interventions to enhance the behavioral and mental wellness. So basically, it's a science that focuses not just on the disease, but well-being and how we can be better. And psychiatry took a different path in and psychology too, in 1920s or so, when medications started coming around, especially, we forgot, the base of psychology studies were mostly to study the mental illnesses, study people's characters and psychology of human mind, and then to apply that in the industrial and organizations so we can do better. And in all these things, we forgot about the happiness. So what are the usefulness in psychiatry and our life? So it promotes our well-being, which could be physical or mental well-being. It helps you to develop post-traumatic growth. So there are some literature on how even during the trauma, we all grow, and some of you probably experienced that. It helps us in successful aging, and some of you are going through that. And that aging also kind of, if you have planned yourself well financially, you do well. In same way, if you plan yourself well emotionally and preparing yourself for how to be happy, also it helps. Developing resilience, so it develops resilience to deal with the issues going on and how to bounce back from that. It prevents the mental and psychosomatic illnesses and recovery and remission from mental illnesses also. So for our patients, it's important to learn this. So the concept of happiness comes from our Eastern literatures. In Buddhism, of course, it's been described as nirvana, and so is in Hindus. But Hinduism focuses a lot on gratitude, non-violence, boundless compassion, and generosity. And if you ever do any of the readings of the literature, or even the modern people like Mahatma Gandhi, most of the ideas come from there. And Christians also stresses the Makarios, which is the bliss, that's the supreme happiness as the ultimate end of humans. So I think religion's goal is to make you happy too, and not to make you miserable. So they also seek out that way. The concept in philosophical aspect came from Aristotle, who believed that eudaimonia, which is a happiness that is like a long-term happiness, could be achieved by being fortunate and living with your virtues and applying your virtues. So he said that pursuit of virtues, excellent and best within us, will lead to happiness. And pursuit of happiness has been put in our Declaration of Independence, but Jefferson meant by that is the pursuit of basically follow your characters, just like what Aristotle believed, that build up your characters and eventually society will become happy. So I think there is a little bit of socialism there, that if people are following their virtues and doing well, they will make the society happy. Concept is quite individualistic in our society in Western world, but countries like India and even some underdeveloped countries, sometimes they look for collective happiness, and that's where they actually pull each other out to become more happy. And King of Bhutan has given this concept of the happiness in a different sense. So what is happiness? So happiness, is it just having the pleasure? Basically a positive emotion. So you are going for a walk and you saw some beautiful flowers that your neighbor has done the garden, and you like happily admiring that. You're talking to your long lost friend and you suddenly found them and talking to them for another 20-30 minutes. And this all gives us pleasure in life, eating a nice meal, getting a paycheck raise or something. And how does happiness relate to our past, present, and future? Or is the happiness an engagement? Because opposite of engagement is burnout. And the burnout is detrimental in our life. So, or some people go further, that is it the meaning of life? So what Martin Seligman, who is the psychology guru of the happiness, describes this happiness as a combination of frequent positive affect, high life satisfaction, and infrequent negative affect. So why did I highlight this infrequent negative affect? The studies done in depressed people, actually comparing them with the normal people. So depressed people have equal amount of positive affect, but somehow have a higher negative affect. And so if you have more negative affect, meaning something that makes you unhappy kind of affect, it tends to make you more depressed also. So I think you probably got this announcement, and they took this from my blog, which is used for happiness. So happiness is described as being sometimes used in a different ways and confused and kind of misused also. And I've done that myself. Well-being is the perfect physical and psychological equilibrium between past, present, and future. So this is what Dr. Seligman says. This term is used more in terms of measuring physical health and at times psychological health also. But the happiness is the current state of positive emotion. So it is what you are right now, am I right? You ask somebody, hey, how are you doing? And they say, I'm okay, I'm happy because I got this news that I'll be promoted or something. So that's the current state of happiness. And it's fluctuate depending on the internal perception. So yeah, you got promotion, but maybe you didn't get the raise. So now you are unhappy again. So it's like your internal perception also goes with that. But does this happiness last long? And probably it does help you because you need to have positive emotions like we said earlier, but it doesn't lead you to lasting long. So we should strive for subjective well-being. And this is what probably some of you have done in your life. I can see that Dr. Bilyar, Dr. Vasavada, Dr. Prakash, this all people have done good job of working towards the life goals. So subjective well-being is the correct term to measure long-term happiness. It measures the life satisfaction, of course, along with that happiness. And in addition, some scientists also add the sense of purpose and meaning to our life. So what is the path to meaningful life? And this is what has been talked a lot. So if you look at the top of the pleasant life, is really small chunk of our happiness comes from looking for quick pleasures. So it's called a hedonic treadmill, and we look for happiness. We look for eating good food. Suddenly we want to go to a parlor and get the best, makeup or something. We want to buy the nicest car, but these things will last for a short time. Then we also, part of the happiness comes from the good life, which is working on your well-being and applying those principles, living a good life, not doing wrong, helping people out along with that, and doing your job right. But the bigger chunk for happiness comes from finding meaning and purpose and getting there through transcendence. And this is kind of reverse pyramid of Maslow's. As some of you who have learned psychology know that Maslow's self-actualization sits on the top of it. Basic, of course, is the security, the food, etc., and then work, and then, so it's kind of reverse Maslow's pyramid here. And we'll talk about that in detail. I'm going to go here. Happiness brings longer life. And the study done in Nun, who made some diaries and looked at it. The nuns who lived longer by 14%, who had more positive emotions and affirmations in their daily writings. It brings success to work and our earnings. Happiness brings better social relationship. And that's the most robust finding. Your connectedness improves because people like to be with happy people. If you're happy, your marriage will be happy. It brings better mental and physical health. But is it chicken or the egg? Which one comes first? Happiness comes first and then the good life, or the good life happens and then the... So I'm going to talk about 3 questions here. Why should we be happy? And importance of subjective well-being. So question 1, do people with more positive emotions live longer and healthier? So the study, and this is a beautiful article by Chida and Steptoe, reported in meta-analysis. They looked at several studies together that positive psychological well-being was related to lower mortality and higher longevity in healthy and diseased population. Even diseased population, they live longer and independently of negative effect. And positive moods such as joy, happiness, and positive energy, and characteristics such as life satisfaction, hopefulness, optimism, and sense of humor were associated with reduced mortality risk in healthy population. So this study was done as the English longitudinal study, and this is an amazing study. They followed 9,000 plus people for over 8.5 years. They were somewhere in their 60s or so. and the mean age of 65 years of age, some were younger, some were older, 50 plus people. And they looked at for that many years to see where does the life take you. So they put people in the 4 kind of groups here. And the one in the red, of course, were the most unhappy. One in the green and purple were in the middle quartile. And the blue is the top quartile. They were very happy, or they had subjective well-being index was very high to begin with. And so you can see that the mortality over the time is reduced almost 42% versus 21% in lowest quartile of happiness. And this is counting the smoking, the disease, etc. So this again tells you that those people who had better sense of life, meaning, and understanding of life and positive emotions live longer. Can social well-being improve our chance of surviving an existing illness? So if you develop cancer, we say, hey, be positive and you will do better. So I have some good news and bad news here for you guys. The results on survivals are mixed. Some studies, especially in cardiovascular, show a good results. So if you had heart disease, if you had some other disease, learning some positive ways and not creating negative emotions can help you. But the evidence against cancer or acute infections are mixed and is uncertain overall support. So, because I think you also don't want to be irrationally optimistic when choosing a proper treatment. So if you are optimistic and you said, you know what, I will do this and I can be surviving this thing. So classic example, as you know, is Steve Jobs, am I right? Irrationally optimistic about herbal treatment, cleansing. He developed a pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor, which was small to begin with and did not get help at that point. Waited for a year or so and did not do much follow-up probably, and end up suddenly, it went wild, and then he probably did okay after he got the treatment for another 4 or 5 years and produced the iPhone. So there was definitely, but still, that irrational optimism sometimes can also hurt you. Some studies don't show any effect on other disease, but happiness has been associated with favorable profiles of health-related biomarkers, lower cortisol output, lower concentration of inflammatory and other things. So it does help in that sense. Why should I be in pursuit of happiness? Can it improve my life? And this is where the most, I think, evidence also comes. Positive affect is associated with protective, psychosocial, and behavior factors. So it's like prevents you from getting into a depression or other behavioral issues. This includes great social connectedness, connecting with other people. People who have a good social well-being perceive that good social support. They rate their social support as higher. Their optimism is higher, which again helps them in dealing with the illnesses, and their preference for adaptive and coping responses. Cross-cultural research says that positive affect is mixed with exercising regularly. If you exercise with positive affect, you have to do something yourself too. Just because having positive affect doesn't help you. Not smoking and eating a prudent diet, making you live longer and making your life worth living. You are more likely to be married with higher subjective well-being. You have friends, more friends, participate in clubs and organizations, do more volunteering, maybe wealthy and have less loneliness in your older age. So is happiness a genetic gift? And some of you may have seen this diagram, and it's like developed by Sonia Limbormisky. And it's a study done over several years, tells that especially in the monozygotic twins, that happiness is somewhere 50%. So what you get from mom and dad is 50%. 10% is outside circumstances. So we prepare our life to get this, and we really work hard to get this, which is money, house, good marriage, reputation. And that gives you 10% of happiness. And then other activities we do it, your thoughts and actions gives you another 40% of happiness. So again, it's not all set. It's not only one thing. There are other things you can do to increase your happiness if you are genetically challenged. And this is like a general study. Some people have probably negative genes to develop depression, so they cannot do much. So what is the set point theory? Set point theory says that you have genetic level of happiness, and where you are today, you're going to go back today. Doesn't matter good or bad happens to you. So long-term emotional states are not powerfully affected by life events as you might expect. Imagine the time when you had a car accident. Imagine the time when you lost your grandfather many, many, many years back, and you feel like this is very, heartbreaking, and how will I come out of it, right? So usually 2 years is what it takes to overcome the negative events in our life, like loss, death, divorce, job loss, change, losing some friends, etc. And then 1 year. So on the contrary, when a good thing happens, it doesn't last more than a year. So you go back to your set point, your harmony where it was before, after positive events like winning a lottery, being newly married, you got a new job, promotions, etc. And this is where you go back. And it's called hedonic treadmill. You try to reach to this happiness by doing something always constantly to be happy. If I take a vacation, I'll be happy. If I make another $50,000 in my pay, I will be happy. So you create this treadmill, and it's like a rut you get into that you can never achieve. Circumstances also play part, sure, money, marriage, education, your health, and these all kind of affect our life satisfaction. But again, those things happen to us, and this is where the real cognitive behavior therapy and some of the psychotherapy works to get you out of it. It may not be in your control, but how you look at it, so it's a perception, and adverse events in your life is in your control. And it helps your set point to go up faster. So what is the third part of it, which is the intentional activity? Remember, the 40% is the intentional activity. So these are the behavioral activities that makes you happy, like exercise, random kindness, altruism, doing volunteer work, helping somebody out during the right time. It's also your own inner kind of things, cognitive thing, reframing, how you reframe the event, gratitude, letter writing down positive things at the end of the day, counting one's blessings, and being mindful of surrounded by what is good around you, and grounding yourself. All those techniques also helps us to stay, at least go back to the set point. And then volitional activity is meaning putting the above in practice of your own. So these are the 12 activities that has been talked about again by Dr. Soumya Lumbrowski. And it's basically savoring, enjoying what you're doing at this point. It's mindfulness concept. And flow, meaning you get into this zone that you enjoy. You're eating the nicest meal and talking to your family members about their day. And you forgot about what happened the day before or your current stress. Build up on your relationship, develop the gratitude, goals that you set, coping, kindness, optimism, spirituality, mind, body, and forgiveness, and non-comparison. And again, comparison and envy also brings a lot of negative emotions in our life. Happiness through life cycle. So what happens? Does our happiness stay same? So happiness is highest when you are young or old. So if you are somewhere in above 55 and so, your happiness is climbing up. Just like you build up a good life, you build up a good happiness or subjective well-being also. The worst time for male is from 36 to 44, and female is 40 to 52. And these are the childbearing years, and these are the most miserable years. And so even though raising a child improves your life satisfaction, but while you are doing it, you don't see it, am I right? You're 2-year-old and it's crying and laying on the floor and you have to go to work. And that's not like satisfaction. But when you raise the child and they do well, and they are raising their child in a nicer way, and you see them doing well again, what you taught them, that's where your life satisfaction happens. Then there is empty nest, and some people make a good out of it, and that again, the happiness builds up on that. And last year of life, of course, could be another unhappy time because of your health. Some people lose money and relationship, loneliness, etc. Loneliness has been counted as big factor, and also almost as bad as smoking nowadays, because loneliness kills. The rate of death is as much as it is. So this is a British study again. I've been quoting these British studies because they're good at long-term studies. European studies, again, are good. So they look at these people's studies and say, what is the life satisfaction in the different age? And you can see it here, right there. The first one on your top left side is the life satisfaction. It's the lowest between that, the productive years, am I right? We are achieving here one after other, am I right? Boom, 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 boom. We're getting our reputation in our work. We are doing things. We're getting awards. We are helping people. We are mentors for other people at this age. But the life satisfaction is not there yet. It usually builds up as time goes by. And this, again, the anxiety and the depression also builds up during the middle age also. So there are some happiness economists. Economist equation gives you this kind of weird equations. But we're going to talk about equations that are a little bit easy to understand. So like I said earlier, am I right? Happiness equals to your genetics, your circumstances, or your activities. Martin Seligman says that well-being is perfect past, perfect present, and perfect future. And you will wonder, what is that? What is perfect past? How can my past be perfect? It's already gone. How can I make it perfect? And we talk about that in a minute. What he meant by was that the contentment, forgiveness, gratitude, all those things, if you develop those qualities, can make your past tolerable if you had a horrible past. If you had a good past, then again, those things help you build up a lot. The mindfulness of being in presence, enjoying things, thankful for what we have it, savoring this, getting into zone, learning not to multitask, all those things helps us. And optimism also is the future orientations, developing a hope that in the big picture, things will work out. And this is the principle of resilience also. So contentment, like I said earlier, is expectations, forgiveness, gratitude. Present is mindfulness, savoring and flow. And future is optimism and hope. So again, what you can develop. So this is a good sentence here. Past is experience, present is experiment, and future is expectations. Use your experience in your experiments to achieve your expectations. So this is my equation. I think the happiness is, of course, Martin Seligman's statement is correct. But then there are things that destroys our happiness is expectation. We expect more, am I right? We say to our kid when they bring B+ grade, I say, what happened? Why didn't you get A grade? So that's the expectation of parents. Control. And so we control things has to be done this way. I can only cook this way only. I cannot eat, I cannot drink tea without sugar. So this is all our control. Small control leads to bigger control in your life, and it makes you unhappy. Sometimes, some days you let go of your controls and life can be okay also. And of course, events makes you unhappy too. So now we're going to segment part 2, which is going to the W's that I talk about a lot and I write a lot about on my website. You can go there, Happy Mind MD, that I talked about earlier. So these are the well-being, physical, mental, and personality well-being, wealth, or having money at certain extent, having a worthy partner, work and retirement, fulfillment of life, and then well-wishers, our friends, family, culture, religion, and institutions brings us happiness. And our nation and society too, am I right? So well-being. So what is our well-being? Is we need to take care of ourselves, take care of our body and mind. Because if you are only 45, you don't want to be disabled, am I right? Some of you are physicians and you're seeing these people. I mean, if you look at in the United States, they said almost 30 to 40% of disease are preventable, am I right? Obesity, drinking, not sleeping right, accidents, homicides, all those things, drug use can be prevented. And that's where the disability can lower your happiness. Enhance your positive virtues to bring happiness. So focus on your positive qualities. Sometimes we can't focus so much on your negatives, but you can enhance your positives. Cultivate optimism to the things will work out. You trust and then it works out well. And then you use your gratitude to go back and say, I did felt that way, but it's the grace of God. It's the meaning that I find in my life. And spirituality is an important part of your well-being also. So what is self-well-being? Self-care, self-well-being is a diet. People who eat healthy leads to happiness. In one study, the medical students were asked to eat a healthy breakfast, which is hard for them to do it. And they ate 3 meals a day. I'm not sure what medical school they went to, but they were happier than the people who were remaining hungry or not eating right. Eating together or consuming holiday feast also makes. Hello? Okay. Am I good to go? Yeah. Okay. Exercise also is an important part of our life and is an antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication. Recent studies have shown that it works very well for mild to moderate depression. People who are physically active but not doing rigorous exercise are also happy also. So you should walk somewhere 7,500 steps to 10,000 steps somewhere. It used to be 10,000 steps, but now there's a 7,500 steps are good enough. And I'm happy about it because I don't walk as much. So probably in walking in hospital, I easily add 4,000 or 5,000 steps for sure. Hiking in nature and exercising in groups have also advantages, and studies have shown that. Sleep. The chronic sleep deprivation has been linked to an increased risk of car crash, poor work performance, and problem with mood and relationship. And people that tend to die early also, and dementia also can develop. So your goal, the sweet spot for actually, if you ask me what's the right amount of sleep, is 7 to 8 hours. If you're sleeping more than 8.5, 9 hours, that's not good too, because that means there is some kind of illness, you're avoiding something, and that's why you're sleeping so much. Now, of course, there are some natural sleepers who sleep like that, but if you can get into this zone is better. Controlling alcohol, of course, I don't have to say to this group, people who drink less are happier, less likely to have issues. Coping skills and regulation of affect. How do you regulate your emotions? This is the emotional EQ, am I right? You learn not to let your affect ride so much and not get upset so much that you ruin the whole day or the whole party or something. Learn to improve your coping skills. There are 3 types of skills. Appraisal focused, meaning know your problems. If you don't know your problems, then you don't know what you're facing with them, right? So you should be very good at appraisal. Am I depressed today? Am I not happy today? What's happening? Accept the thing that is happening around you, that your emotions are right. At that point, I did get angry, but was it right or wrong? Deny your emotions or defer or fight. So this is how we do with appraisal focus. And if you deny it, maybe it's not good for you, or defer or fight, maybe okay for a while, but then it may come back. And we coping skills apply in problem focus, like take the problem and what do you do about it? And then emotion focus, meaning how to control your emotions while you are managing these problems. So it's controlling your emotions, not let it ride so much or up and down both ways. Venting, talking to somebody, humor, acceptance will get you better. And by any cost, we should be avoiding disability. And if there is a disability, and then again, and especially with your social economic disadvantage, if you're also in that group and poor social support, then it's very hard to come back from the disability and unhappiness. Now, second W is wealth. Money can't buy you happiness, but it does bring you a more pleasant form of misery. So again, can money bring you misery? And there is a 3 side of it. So first study that Easterlin was economist actually. And then they studied this happiness. They followed this data during the baby boomers time of 60s, 46 to 1991. And you can see that our real GDP per capita kept on increasing for the United States. but our happiness level actually kind of went up for a while in 50s because country was doing good as a collective happiness. And then whole society was unhappy with war and our new age thinking, etc. And then we bounced back, and then happiness remained somewhere in that age. And still probably somewhere in that range. So what Easterlin said is that just giving people more money and income is not going to bring you happiness. Like I said with the pun, there is a two side of the coin, whether your wealth is important, it's head or the tail. So those in favor of head, meaning that money does buy you happiness, or money does not buy you happiness. So Easterlin and people said that money does not buy you happiness beyond certain level. So in 1990 money, the study done was like 75,000. And I said now 1,000 and 100,000 and 105,000, but this was probably 2 years back. My slide says that maybe it's 120 now with the inflation going up. So after that level, people don't become any more happy, basically. And that's what studies after studies show that. So making more money is not the solution. Increasing income is commonly associated with increased happiness and subjective, but at some point, like a set point, it's going to fizzle out. Being wealthy and will bring turmoil also. If you have too much money, pressure to continue making money. Now you're supporting people, you have a company and you're like 45 people working for you. It brings you insecurity. Somebody wants your job, somebody wants to outdo you in the business. And then you have less time for leisure and your family also, if you don't take care of yourself, of course. And then again, rich people have inner dissatisfaction to make more money. Some rich people are miserable in that sense. They just want to make more money by any ways, and they get in their own trouble also. So some people say that that's not true. More money, more happiness. And some of the economic studies shows also, like Stevenson, that rich people are happier than poor people. And that's true actually in the big aspect. Rich people are happy. Richer countries are happier than poor countries. Whenever you see the global happiness studies, you see that most of the happiest countries are the developed countries, am I right? For example, Scandinavian countries are the happiest. And then mostly the European countries, of course, United States is somewhere always 16, 17, 18 in that range. But you don't see other poor countries. Then even India probably stays somewhere in the 60s and 80s and stuff like that. But I think is the measure also, how we measure, like I said earlier, individual measurement versus collective measurement. As countries get richer, they tend to get happier. So the country that is coming out of the underdeveloped to the developed and to the further developed stage, people become happier. And that's what politicians' job is, am I right? What is their job? Is to make us happy, am I right? So people with higher income tends to be given lighter prison. In some studies have shown that for the same crime. They have better physical and mental health, have greater longevity, so they live longer, and are less frequently the victim of violent crimes because we live in a good neighborhoods and we don't go around except in the cars or so, and experience fewer stressful life events. So this is another study showing that. Killingsworth studies though was interesting because now we have data points and we take the live self data point in 33,000 US adults and ask them to rate their present happiness. So suddenly you get ping and your text message says rate it. And then you're going to rate your present happiness and your life satisfaction. Those with larger incomes were associated with more momentary positive feelings and life satisfaction. The finding held even in income above 75,000 annually, and it went even further, who made even $500,000 annually. And this is the data here. Again, life satisfaction, as you see it, $480,000 some people made. It kept on going up and up and up. And the negative feeling actually goes down. So there is something happens when you have money, you have less distress. And the negative feelings are less. And that protects you from getting into that unhappiness zone. But my view is this third side. It's the third side of the coin, or the coin has not fallen anywhere. It's the glass half empty, half full perception and anticipation, am I right? So if people perceive they're poorer, they have a higher chance of lower life satisfaction. So this is the time where inflation has gone down, your paycheck is not enough, then You probably are paid compared to $12, now you're paid $18, but then you're spending more money. So the perception of being poor, especially if you're living in a rich cities or rich neighborhood, and you are the poor one, then again, life satisfaction is so. Inability to keep up with the Joneses, meaning your neighbors, might result in dissatisfaction or even for higher status people. So even in higher status people, when they realize that somebody that has equal amount of company, but they are richer, they again create this dissatisfaction in their own mind. So perceptions of positive change in financial circumstances, as you are opposed to, like if you go to the first job and suddenly your income went up, like my residency years to the attendingship, am I right? It brought me a lot of happiness during those residency time that I'm making money. So again, moving from one strata to other strata also makes you happy. Loss of income brings more misery than gain in income. Unemployment actually is the biggest culprit of unhappiness. And that's also considered to be biggest risk factors for suicide also. And people are unhappy if they perceive their current financial situation to be worse than the last year and will be worse in the coming years. If you think that you're stuck in this income, it doesn't go up, then again, it can bring you unhappiness. And there is something called misery index, which is the unemployment. It's national index, it's not our index. Unemployment, inflation, and bank lending rates, minus the percentage of change in real GDP. And now this is the worst time for that, isn't it? Unemployment is though is good, inflation is higher, lending rates are going up, and GDP is almost stuck in a minus or level. So again, will increase the unhappiness in the following years. So to some extent, money does buy happiness, summarizing it. Citizens of wealthy nations have 7 out of 10 chance of being happy. And if you had free choice, the freedom, am I right? Freedom to say something, freedom to move, freedom to write something, all these chances jump to 8 out of 10. And money can make you happy if you do something with it for others. So how can you use your money to buy happiness? So buy an experience, not the stuff. So try to get some experiences, new learning, etc. is important. If you just keep on getting a new clothes or new car or new home or bigger homes, that happiness will last, like we said earlier, short time. But if you learn a new hobby in your retirement, that will give you joy for next 5-10 years, easily. Spend money on others, and again, studies show that personal versus pro-social spending, meaning expenses and gift for themselves versus giving it to somebody, it made people happy. In studies, they gave people money and they say, you can use it for yourself or you can use it for somebody else. People who get for somebody else were happier. Outsource your mundane and tedious tasks. So what can money do for you is you give your tedious tasks to somebody else. If I'm a busy doctor, if I have a scribe working for me, sure, I'm going to lose that 30,000 or so, 25,000 or so. Then I can be happier probably because somebody is writing my stuff, taking away my mundane tasks. So spending money on time-saving services, house cleaning, lawn care, grocery can also make you happier. Buying time with money may reduce the feeling of time pressure. So basically time pressure also is another one that makes people happy. And it's kind of stressful because imagine the time pressure where you have to do this. And if you don't do this, you have deadlines. And then you have to pick up your kids from the school. And now you have to come home and put them to bed. And you still have to do that presentation and prepare for the next day's meeting. So it's all this time pressure, which doesn't give you time to relax and doesn't let you go back to your basic kind of level of, stress level. You buy material goods that help you experience joy. You did buy expensive stuff. Now your job is to make the best out of it. So in case you bought a house, what can you do with the big house? Am I right? Invite people to your home, enjoy the corner of it, decorate in such a way, make something your own kind of temple or zone out of it. And that's what these materials, goods will give you happiness. Express yourself through spending. If you love to travel, identify with other things, spend money on hobby. If you buy some kind of gadgets for that, it's also important. If you're introvert, then you may find happiness in spending on bookstores, spending time by yourself, having a nice coffee or something, than to spend a drink on a crowded bar. and then rent a dose of happiness. Time to time, we should splurge and go out and go on a vacation, cabin hideaways, rent a sports car instead of regular car. It's also important to do those things. Again, life events on life satisfaction, we talked about. The marriage now comes in, is happier time on women. And for men, it is also happier. But widowhood, of course, brings unhappiness. Divorce brings unhappiness. And then layoff again brings unhappiness. So this is again a big study done, I think in UK again. So why is our partners important? Why do we need to really invest in that? Am I right? We spend 20 probably years going to school to study, to do what? To make more money, to get a stable job. But we don't plan for two things. We don't never get into school. Nobody teaches you how to find a right partner. Am I right? Nobody teaches you how to retire. And those things are very important. What do you need to prepare for your retirement? And you don't go to school for that. So 45 years of studies have shown that marriage has been affecting our well-being by achieving financial resources. Of course, now we all are two-income people. And even if you're not, it improves because one person takes care of other things in the house, fostering better physical health and providing more incredible emotional support. And that's the best thing that one can get. And along with your spouse probably comes another social support of another 1,000 people if you are an Indian person. Married people are 3 times happier than cohabitating partners. So nowadays our kids are living with their partners, and this has been tradition in USA for a long time. But married people are happier than cohabitating partners because for cohabitating partners, sometimes there is no end point of it, or they're looking to turn into marriage and doesn't happen. So again, those anticipation leads to that unhappiness also. Marriage brings good health. There is a lower substance abuse and suicide and higher chance of surviving after heart attack and cancer, especially if your spouse is involved in your care. So if they do the nagging, I think they take nagging as a good thing. It reduces loneliness and prolongs your life. It brings financial stability, of course, if you're two income. And divorce and single parents have more difficulty with parenting, and divorcees are most unhappy and likely to commit suicide, even more than the widowed. So again, like we see here, widowhood brings the unhappiness for a short time, and then they go back to better, level. Okay. The next one is work. So why do we work? What does work bring you happiness? Well, it does bring you meaning, am I right, in our life. So when you don't have income, of course, like we talked about money part, it's going to be detrimental. Like I said earlier, unemployment is the worst thing that can happen, especially if you're fired suddenly where you have no idea. And even giving somebody a golden parachute that you say, oh, don't work for next 6 months, we're going to pay you and just enjoy at home. It's not a good thing. Structure and routine. So what does money bring, work bring it to us? One is source of income. 2, it brings you structure and routine. And the routine is important to reduce our anxiety. Is routine brings this familiarity, and doing our routine also reduces our anxiety because you are problem solving when you are routine. Source of personal status and identity. Sure, in our work, we do something, people know you, what you're doing it, and it gives you personal value, worth, and being needed. Because our partner can make you that, but is not the only thing. Socialization, being away from stress at home, because home could be a stressful life for some people. And home life with kids can be stressful, like we said earlier. So people in the child rearing age are more unhappy than older age. And some people work to fight the loneliness also. And we've seen many, many older doctors still working to fight this loneliness. We also work for personal growth because it's called calling. And we include the ideas that people have been summoned to meaningful and socially valued work. So a lot of people change their career. Suddenly, I see these medical students, I know a psychiatrist in Montgomery suddenly left his practice and to learn more about spirituality and become a priest. So maybe he found the calling there, am I right? So again, people change their career path, and it's our personal growth happens through that also. And some kind of spiritual connections we find with changing our career, and volunteering, or even working for Doctors Without Borders, or things like that. Burnout, work can be detrimental for some. So again, work also brings unhappiness. And working from home can also, like we were talking earlier, Zoom and social isolations and job satisfaction. And now there is a backlash against working from home, again, is going on. But I think we don't have enough data to tell me yes or no. So I'm not going to say definitely don't do it or do it. My wife works from home and she's happiest. And if she's happy, then I'm happy. Unemployment, we told you, decreases life satisfaction by 19% and scores by 15%. And that's a big when you're talking about these things. Americans tend to maximize their utility by working, while Europeans maximize their utility through the leisure. They measure their happiness through their leisure time, vacation time. And if you know that, like Paris, they say closes during the whole summer months where people go on vacation for 6 weeks or so. Unemployed men, middle-aged and educated who are unemployed suffer the most in rich countries. So if you are working in the rich countries and suddenly become unemployed, you're middle-aged and educated, it will be hard for you to bounce back sometime. An increased risk of suicide 2 to 3 times. Retirement can only be beneficial if viewed positively. If you are not ready to retire and suddenly you have to retire because of your circumstances, you got sick, your family got sick, suddenly your job was wiped out and you couldn't find anything. And so again, it's could be both positive, negative. So how can work make us happy? Find a work that fulfills your meaning of life. We always say in medical school, once you get up in the morning and if you want to be psychiatrist that morning again, that's a good thing. So find a work that makes you get up in the morning to do that thing. If you're unhappy in the morning to go to your work, then you have burnout, likely. If you cannot change your job, think about ways you can be creative at your job, foster some team membership, team building, that you can hang around with people that are happier and can at least do the things the right way. Always look for other opportunities and challenges if there is, further studies, etc. And if you're a boss, find people's strength and create a team that can bring happiness to them. The last W is the well-wishers. Our social connections is the most happy. And this is what we are doing today. In a meta-analysis of 148 studies, that's a big meta-analysis. The researchers found a 50% increased likelihood of survival for participants with stronger social relationships. This is the one thing you learn today, is this is what it is. If you are socially connected, don't say no when people invite you. Don't say no to your friend that you've not met for a while. Say, let's go for a cup of coffee. If you're trying to isolate yourself, is not good. Our family is positive, and sometimes family is not the only thing. In some studies, even having a close friend is equally good. Friends are equally important, but it increases happiness by 1.5 times if a friend is living in your neighborhood, basically within a mile or 2 or so. If a friend is way back in India, that's not going to help you so much. Survival is 25% more for those with friends in Australian study. Religion. Does religion bring us a good life? Religious involvement and spirituality are associated with better health outcomes, including greater longevity. People live longer, better coping skills, less anxiety and depression, and suicide. And Pew Research study stated that actively religious people are likelier to be very happy in a religious country. So now you take this religious person and move them to a non-religious country. So if you are, other way around, sorry, if you are a non-religious person in a religious country, then you will be unhappy. So again, I think this perception is important. Also found that religious people are in good health. Again, physical health is better for them also. And also they take part in civic participation, meaning more likely to vote, more likely to let their view know, etc. And more likely to run even for the offices also. What are the other things? Pets, and Imogen knows that, my disdain for pets, but again, shorter studies show that better in cardiac and anxiety and PTSD. So, but studies are short. We should have long-term studies for that, but at least it helps in cardiac health because you walk with the pets. For some people, it's the therapy, it reduces anxiety. And nowadays, some data show in PTSD also that it helps, pet helps to reduce the PTSD. Community and institutions, our organizations, do they make us happy? living in a close community, in a good neighborhood, where there is a good governance in our nation, increases happiness and provides better health and longevity. So again, when our nations are strong, they're providing civic things, less chance of violence. And there is one study done called a lost wallet study in happiness. So if you lost your wallet, will you find it back? And what do you think? You will or will not? It kind of gives you a trust in fellow human being. That's what it's looking for. So that trust, when people have that trust, they're happier. And again, that lost wallet study is very strong, relates to, especially in Scandinavian countries, where they trust each other. They expect less. They know exactly what their retirement would be. And so they always do better in those happiness studies. Volunteering, and some of them are volunteering much more than I can imagine. It increases your connections, improves your health, and volunteers at low mortality rates. It brings meaning to your life again. So again, we are looking for meaning to life. So for some people, it's a second life, second innings, volunteering after retirement. And hobbies also are important because it brings you to live in the moment. It brings the flow and reduces your stress. It has a mental and physical boost. It can improve your connections because sometimes you are connected to other people for the hobby, and helps your loneliness. It can also keep you out of trouble with your spouse if you're retired. So again, this is just my 2 cents. It's not proven, but it's just what I say here. And I think some people find hobby after retirement because their spouse wants them to do something too. Again, 12 intentional activities, and you can go on. If you type it, this one, you can find it, 12 intentional activities for increasing life satisfaction. There's a nice handout. Usually I give it out to people, but I failed to do so here. And again, we go back to these things. I have my website, I said earlier, Happy Mind MD. I write my newsletter once a month. And if you want to go there and subscribe, you can do that. You're welcome to. So again, we summarize this. Well-being is important, physical, mental, and we should prepare for that all the time. Don't take it for granted. Wealth or absence of poverty, worthy partners, and respect that partner. Cherish the relationship. Work and retirement is important. Retirement and happiness, I didn't say much here, but you guys are good at it probably. And well-wishers, friends, family, culture, religion, institutions are also important for our life. And even good nation, good governance is important for our happiness.
Well, that was wonderful, Dr. Tarak. Can everybody whoever is unmuted, can you give them a clap?
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know how you were reacting. I was just talking.
It was great. So much information, and I wish we had more time so that we didn't have to rush. But usually we set aside some time for questions and answers.
I'm sorry. I think I talked long.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
I have time. If you have time, I have time. I don't mind. Yes. I'm not in a hurry. So don't worry.
If people have a question, I can answer. Raise their hands, unmute them, and ask questions, because I feel like you've been wonderful in bringing up so many practical ideas. And the equation was wonderful, and the points are well taken, and there are so many things to take from your lecture. I'm very happy to have you here. Leta has a question. Go ahead. All right, Georgie's here. Okay. Go ahead.
Hello. Unmute yourself, or you can type the question. That's okay too.
Hello, Tarak. This is Shobha.
Yes, Shobha, go ahead.
I have one more thing to add to your happiness equation.
Okay.
Like when you're saying if you are of a different religion in a religious country or a non-religious person, I felt a sense of belonging is very important for your happiness.
True. That is
like
true.
Anytime you feel like I don't belong here, I'm not with people like me, it adds to your unhappiness, I think. Would you agree?
But is it our perception too? Sometimes we think we don't belong.
But
because like when we came to this country, we thought we don't, we are okay, we belong, but not belong. But then we settled down, we found our roots, we created connections, deeper things. We just show up sometimes. Even I went to American weddings and I thought, do I belong here? But after meeting some friends, I said, oh, I do belong here. Work was like that.
With time, it does get easier. But what I'm saying is initially when you you feel you're out of place, it
Yeah,
adds to your unhappiness, perceived or otherwise, but the feeling of unhappiness is real.
I think that is true. That is definitely belonging is important, because wherever we are, we want to belong, isn't it?
Yes. I just thought I'll make that observation.
You had something to say?
And this is Dilip Sachan. Can I ask, make a comment, question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Vasavada, you gave a very comprehensive and academic lecture. I'm glad that I came to listen to that. I really
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I gave so much data because I read a lot on that, and I like collecting.
I do too. I have always, most of my career I have spent in understanding the biochemistry of things, whether it's medicine or it's physiology or it's disease. And I'm retired now, so I'm getting interested in a lot of other things. So where I got is that to what is the biochemistry of things we remember? In other words, we remember negative things of life more easily than the positive things of our lives. That's where I got started.
Yeah.
So another thing that I have read recently, I get this magazine called Mind, and I use that a lot. This comes from Scientific American publication.
Yes. I've been to their website to find some stuff.
Right. So one thing that I was really impressed reading and realizing it is that this is something that I think we are deficient as Indian society, and that is the smile. And I have read since then several other papers from Europe as well as from United States that smiles makes you happy, even though it may not make other person happy, but 90% of the time it makes other person happy and it makes you happy, even if smile is fake.
Yes, fake it till you make it, but I think it's the connection, am I right? First thing
on that, if you will.
A lot of time patients tell me when I walk in the room that you have a wonderful smile, because I just smile at them and say, how are you doing? It's not just how are you doing, very low tone, but
some people have wonderful smile naturally. And
so I think there may be some biochemistry of that too.
Most men don't have very natural smile. They have to fake a lot.
But I think Indians do smile a lot. Indians comedians are very happy nowadays, very sarcastically happy, but they do good job. I mean, but you're right. There's a lot of seriousness in our Indian culture because we respect elders, and grandpa is sleeping and you can't even walk fast, and you come in the family and father is unhappy and everybody's quiet.
Yeah.
But I think, it's changing probably, hopefully. People are smiling and laughing more everywhere. Hope so.
And the best place is the little children. When you have grandchildren, you learn.
Oh my God, that's like the joy. I was telling my sister-in-law today that I talked to my granddaughter, and it's like, I learned a lot about happiness from her. Of course, she has some unhappy, negative effect, but it's not as much. And the positive is so much that it kind of counteracts this negative effect.
Yeah, I am a tough
You're
guy.
right. We have a lot to learn from our grandkids, actually.
Yeah, I've been a tough guy all my life, being the oldest brother of 5. And when grandson came, I just melted away. I didn't know I have those feelings. And happiness, I think, is now I see any little child anywhere, doesn't matter who child it is, it just makes me happy.
So maybe that life satisfaction, I don't think, but Dr. Jeste writes about the grandfather and what's the purpose of grandfather in this society and the wisdom they bring in. And so I think it's both ways. The kids makes us happy, the grandkids makes us happy, but then we provide the family that wisdom. And he writes about quality of wisdom. I've written on my website, actually. People are asking me for the handout, but if you go to my website, I have a lot of things there. I put that the handout for the intentional activity there. But you are right. I didn't include that, but I need to look into research of that being grandparents and how that can make you happy.
By the way, if anybody wants a recording of this lecture, it will be available through ICSSS. You can email Dr. Masudev and he will send you the recording. Every session is recorded and the recordings come very good. And since there was a lot of information, I'm sure you won't be able to remember everything. Therefore, you can always go back and refer to the recording if you want to keep it.
Very true. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead,
Dr.
Dr.
Prakash,
Rudra.
I think you need to
Unmute
unmute
yourself.
yourself, Dr. Rudra.
You have to unmute yourself.
Or you can type the question if you want to.
You have to unmute. Dr. Rudra, you didn't unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now you're on.
Thank you so much, Tarak, for taking time. This is a very good presentation, and I compliment you for carving out an area of interest or research for yourself.
Thank you, sir.
And this is beautiful. It has a lot of community service also built in that pursuit. So I'd like to have a part 2 of this presentation. I'll
Okay.
strongly propose that we.
I've been working on those 12 activities and working on those, how to write. My future blogs will probably come towards that. And so it may take me a year or so to, because I write one at a time a month. I don't want to make my wife too unhappy by focusing on this too much. It definitely has created some tension for me. So I have to be careful.
But, one thing
George?
in reference to a question that was earlier posed by Shobhaji about unhappiness or lack of happiness when you immigrate.
Yes, it's a big one, isn't it? Yes.
It's,
Yes.
it's a big one, and I'm reminded of Salman Akhtar's book on immigration and how it can be a traumatic process,
Mm.
and it can impact on happiness.
Especially if immigration is forced upon you. That, like, I remember when I came, Dipti did not want to come to USA. So she didn't see the value of it. So it was very hard for her to settle down here and belonging, like what Shobha said. And she had to change her career, and it was traumatic for her for sure. I still remember that bag was still not unpacked for a year or two, probably. There were some clothes that remained there.
Sure. Well, job well done, Tarak.
Thank you, sir.
so much. We cannot thank you enough. And Pramod,
George, are you still there?
Thank you for coordinating.
Gayatri?
Yes, how are you, sir?
Very good. You had a question?
No, I have a question about the website. Can you give me that website? I know that Tarak Mehta, one of my friend, she refer me for his name, but I haven't have a chance to meet him. But today I meet him. So nice to meet him. If you know the Rashmi Ben, Rashmi.
Yes, I know Rashmi Ben. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I talked with the Rashmi Ben and you was busy that time. And
Oh, yes, yes.
she
You were there
called
with
you.
her. Yes.
Yeah, she called me. She called you several times, and then after your wife say you are so busy, and so I have some emergency. So I said it's okay, no problem.
Sorry, I tried to help out a lot of people and sometimes extend myself everywhere. So
Yeah, but that day it was real. I need your real help, but it's okay, no problem. And several times she left the message too. Right now she is in India. She is going to the voluntary work. She is my good
Yes.
friend.
Yes, yes, she does.
So
She does a lot of volunteering.
So I am really appreciate. Nice to meet you today. I saw your website and I said, let me I attend today so I can talk with you.
Oh, okay.
So I need your website. That's it. And nice to
Yeah, I
talk
just
with
put it in here since you're asking me. I was ready for it. Somebody has to ask me to promote me.
Is Dr. Mann still there? Anu?
Oh, Dr. Mann is here. Hey, congratulations,
Yes,
Anu.
yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Vasavada. It was amazing.
Chair. We voted for you, so.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate your support. A very nice talk. And I think it's like, I'm in my early 50s and I wish I'd known a lot of this maybe
I wish too. You're right.
earlier, maybe like in college or school, like it's always good to, I mean, you always look back and say, I wish I'd known this, but I think I'm still glad that you had this talk and learned, you really brought about a lot of insight about happiness and what is your thoughts about the difference between happiness and joy?
Well, I think joy is an emotion. And I said earlier, happiness for me is like blood sugar, and life satisfaction and meaning and subjective well-being is the hemoglobin A1C for the whole thing. So joy, I think there are some people blessed with that joy, that they just find the joy in small things. And I think even like what Dilip was saying, that if you can fake it, make it. So joy in just laughing is one thing, and probably humor is other one, but finding a joy in your life in the small things, even negative things, people find joy sometimes. Like, oh, this happened. I just got dirty today. And they tell these stories, long stories about how they missed the bus or something, but they're still laughing about it. So you wonder, is it like genetic, or is it something that trying to make themselves happy by looking at the situation with a different angle? So is it the perception? So I don't know, but I have not studied joy much. I think it's a lot of written in the religious way of a bliss. I think it's even better than the joy. I think it's the bliss probably you should look for rather than joy, because joy could be temporary, I'm not sure, or at least joy could be beginning for happiness too. Because you cannot just have a subjective well-being and be happy. You need to have a constant positive effect to stay happy too. You need everything together, actually. I'm not sure if somebody else has other ideas who have more religious studies.
Would you?
No,
please-
we're running out of time, and I'm sure
Yes, sir.
we'll have to have
Thank
the
you
last
so much.
question and we'll be done.
Yes, sir.
Would you say that joy is more transient? They are both transient, but joy is more like microsecond kind of thing. But
Yeah.
happiness is more sustained, and also it is more of, it's not just, it's kind of a state of, it's your state, not just a passive
Yeah, well,
state.
joy is very micro, you're right. Happiness maybe a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but then again, like I said earlier, subjective well-being is what we should be striving for.
Yeah, and also
So-
this is, I am not, by the way, I'm not trained psychologist or anything. I'm more gastroenterology and biochemistry and so on subsequently. But I think when you are, joy is like something happens and you have a joy, but the happiness is more like a lifestyle and your way of thinking, and it's deeper. It's much more deeper than joy. Am I
Well,
thinking right?
I don't know, people will differ to you, I think. Some people may
let's
not
move that
agree with
discussion
you.
to another session. Dr. Sachin, maybe you need to present on joy. But we're focusing on increasing that sense of well-being, and we're trying to do the best we can. I guess I will have to end this session at this time by thanking Dr. Tarak, and we'll invite him again on another subject. He has a lot of interesting topics to talk about. Therefore, thank you all for coming, and I really appreciate having this opportunity.
I'll come back on the retirement. How about that? Retirement and happiness one day.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
not
you. I'm
money.
going to close the session,
Okay.
and we'll meet again 2 more months with another mental health topic, and next month will be a health topic, and keep in touch with Dr. Vasavada. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming.
Bye.
Thank you, Tarak.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
I didn't want to leave.
Tarak, George here just wanted to say thank you for the talk.